Hi, my name is Mary Leffler, and I'm the instructional coach at Royal Oaks.
Hello, I'm Carrie Renault, and I'm a first grade teacher at Royal Oaks.
And I'm James Ackley. I'm the principal here at Royal Oaks. This is my 10th year at Royal Oaks. And Diane, who just introduced this video to you, had asked us to kind of speak to our UDL journey and some of the details that have come along with that journey. So we are in our 6th year of receiving the UDL grant through the Department of Public Instruction. And it initially started with DPI asking some larger districts in the state of Wisconsin to participate in some of this learning. And so we would send a couple of staff members to the meetings, and we started this walk. And it was perfectly timed for us at Royal Oaks because we were really starting to look into an intervention block, and maybe many of your schools have an intervention block. But we were discussing the value of an intervention block and some of the pros and cons. And around our building leadership council table, we kind of decided that it's for such a small percentage of our population. What's the other kids going to do? So we started having a conversation about how we can meet the needs of all of our kids with what practices. And UDL kind of rose to the surface, and so we started exploring that. And initially, we started talking about book clubs, and we had a couple. We did a book study on UDL Now, which is a very by Katie Novak, a very active researcher and practitioner in UDL practices, and then Universal Guide for Learning Theory and Practice. So those were two books that the state recommended, and we walked that out together. And we started growing our learning, and initially it was all about giving kids voice and choice, and so we jumped on the easier bandwagons of alternative seating, different kinds of furniture for kids. And we really did that for a couple of year or so, in addition to kind of exploring some of the academic pieces of it, but the furniture was easier to tackle. And so a couple of staff members, Tanya Arnold, who's behind the camera, and then Carrie Renault, kind of jumped in on the actual criteria of the grant through the trials and those kinds of things. And Carrie's going to speak to that a little bit later on, but we started walking this journey out, and this is our 6th year of walking this out, and I can say that we have a long ways to continue to walk. We're certainly not where we want to be, but we're certainly doing some good learning around learning and around students. And so we continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to have conversations. We'd love to talk with anyone that wants to know more about it, but Diana just kind of asked us to share our journey. So it started about 6 years ago, and we continued to do it at Reaching High Expectations conferences. We had a conference in Owasso over SLOs and PPGs, and we're starting to practice it. But the most exciting part is around the lesson design that Diane, through CISA 2, has been leading the work, and Carrie and Mary have been leading as well. So that's kind of our journey. I'm sure we'll kind of interject more as we talk a little bit more.
Okay. So we started, Tanya and I did the first UDL trial, and it was extremely messy. We didn't know what we were doing. Then we went the next year. We had a group of first grade teachers. We worked together, and it was still a little bit muddy, but it was a little bit clearer than what it had been. And then we went and had, I think it was the 3rd year, we had teachers from every single grade level participate, and we all focused on writing, and we were able to collaborate a little bit more and talk a little bit more, and we started to implement strategies into our classroom that had to do with the 3 categories of UDL, the representation, action, and expression, and engagement. And then last year, Julie and I, another first grade teacher, we took it a step further, and we focused on adding more strategies. Like, we focused on reading comprehension, and we had Jane Bischoff come. Diane was also there with us along the way. And then now this year, Amy Wiley and I are doing the SLO work in the UDL trials. So it's gradually it's become more clear, and instead of it being a thing, I think it's felt more like a mindset and a shift, and it's an evolution of changing the way that we are looking at education and how we are focusing on the whole child, the social emotional part of the child. We're looking at, because if their buckets are not filled there, they're not going to be able to do any academic work, and so we need to, we're making sure that we have, all kids have access to being able to give us, like we start out with our standard, then we have a goal, and then we think about all different ways that we can, what the barriers are and how we can erase those barriers and give them the tools that they need to become lifelong learners.
So if you're looking if you want to watch them to do UDL, you don't like do UDL. It's kind of just a way of being. So it's not like you're going to run back to your districts and talk to your CNI directors and your directors and your principals and say, hey, I want you to do UDL. I mean, the actuality is UDL is part of an expectation of every Student Succeeds Act, the federal legislation of ESSA, but the reality of it is your schools are already doing a ton of UDL work, intentional planning, looking at barriers, looking to overcome barriers. One of the videos that I wanted to talk about that was very instrumental for me to kind of grasp what it was the Todd Rowell's The Myth of Average. And it's 15-20 minutes, I think it's 19, it's a TED Talk. I'd encourage you to Google it and watch it, because it talks about how we've always planned to the middle or prepared for the average student, when in actuality that doesn't exist. So it made your mindset start thinking about planning to the outliers, and in essence really treating every kid where they are. So I would encourage you to watch that YouTube.
And within that, my role as instructional coach in being sort of in all the classrooms, and also the voice for core, and staying true to our adopted resources that we have in our district for reading, writing, math. We looked at how do we embed those strategies, the UDL strategies, within our already adopted resources, which, yes, that is exactly what we're looking at when we're talking about what are the standards, what are the units of study in reading, writing, and math, and then how do we help all students, and I think that's really important, within the core. How do we give them access to all of the expectations? And it's really about keeping expectations high for everyone. And then getting back to how do we, what barriers might exist for certain students, and how do we help them overcome those barriers through lots of things. I guess one of the things initially that we all kind of thought, also besides furniture and voice and choice, was, it has to be some technology driven piece, and we saw that a lot. Certainly technology can be a piece of it. For example, we have book clubs that go on in some of our upper grades, 3, 4, and 5, for Reader's Workshop. Well, some of the students can access, even though they maybe can't read some of those higher level texts, they can access those texts through Epic or some other technology, so that they can do the thinking work required in those texts, and they can be part of a book club with lots of other students. So it became, yes, in that case, technology was a way to help overcome a barrier for some students. They're also still working in their independent reading books and learning those reading skills at their just right level. So I guess that's an example of a way that we help some of the students overcome some of those barriers.
And I think we're able to implement and embed UDL in our school because we have the support. And we have someone, our principal, James, I went to Boston by myself to the UDL, to the CAS conference, and then last year 5 more of us went. And our school, I feel like when you walk in here, people feel loved and people feel cared about, and we are a family and we take care of each other. And I think that's a huge part of it too. Like you need to have that support within the staff and be able to feel safe within your own community in order for your staff to take risks and in order for your students to take risks as well. And I think that is a really huge part in it, because if we didn't have that, it would go nowhere. We would have flopped completely.
Well, and like any good initiative, someone who has a passion for the work, is going to continue to walk this out, because you bet superintendents, directors, assistant superintendents, principals, we're all instructional leaders, but the actual instructional practices are going on in the classroom with the classroom teacher and the support of the coach, if you're lucky enough to have a coach in your district. And I would highly encourage that. I think that's just,
Yeah.
that's how we grow.
Yeah.
I mean, is by coaching each other and visiting each other and learning from each other.
And you're gonna have, as we all know, staff are in lots of different places in starting something new. And that's been really honored, and people have come along as they're ready. Now this year with some of the collaboration that we're doing with Diane in our PLC times around, let's try it, let's sit down and design a lesson, let's try some of these strategies out. And again, people are feeling safe and respected, and it may not look beautiful all the time, but we're trying it, and
Right.
that's what's really important.
And so I'm sure you're wondering, how about student outcomes? So this all sounds really fine and good, but you're wondering if always it was working. And you know better than anybody, that's a pretty complicated question. There's so much to student outcomes than one single thing. So asking us, do we see that it's been an improved practice? Obviously, we do. Like Mary referenced, our PLCs are working to create, or first of all, analyzing student learning. They analyze their student work, they look at the data, and they use kind of a 25-75 model. You spend 25% of your time looking at the data, and 75% of the time actually implementing innovative, engaging, relevant instruction. And so you put those two pieces together, and you are going to see some solid student outcomes. Obviously, parent engagement at home, expectations of learning at home, the relational piece of the student-teacher interaction. We use Danielson, so a lot of those kind of components, just good practice. But when at the end of the day, our kids are growing, we're seeing that in both, on the indicator that we use, which is STAR, we see both our kids in math and reading achieving above 80%, which with core instruction, that's your goal. Obviously you want everyone to be proficient, but if you can get 80% of your kids to proficiency with solid universal practices, that's a good day. And so with STAR, we're seeing some good outcomes, and we've been growing. So it's not just UDL, it's consistency with delivery of Reader's Workshop and Writer's Workshop, and staying true in doing Bridges and Workshop with fidelity, and staying true to the practices that Teachers College has set up and Bridges has set up, and then support with a coach and teachers who are following the curriculum, but also supplementing the work when they have kids that need it. And so it's multifaceted, right? You've been there. But do we think it's been a solid practice? Analyzing student work, talking about our learners, preparing instruction based on our learners' needs, looking at barriers and getting tools and strategies to overcome those barriers are what we found this to be. The first thing we said is we are walking this out. We don't have the answer, and there isn't a answer. There's multiple answers, and this is one thing that's been working really well for our kids and our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We are noticing teacher practice really changing in a lot of ways. Really, teachers focusing on those instructional practices that are best for kids. We notice things like, again, various strategies that they're trying. A lot more student voice. When you walk into any classroom in our school, teachers are the facilitators, but the students are doing the work. And back to the old, who's ever doing the most talking is doing the most learning. And I would say overall, our students are really doing the work and the talking and the thinking, and they're given access through, again, some of these UDL strategies in order to do that thinking work and talking work and learning work. So I see that when I'm in the classrooms, that teacher practice has definitely been affected by our UDL work.
And I think that, Jonathan Mooney said, you can't change the child, you can change the environment. And I think that makes me reflective every single day of, if someone's not engaged in what they're doing, what do I need to do to change that? How can I get them engaged? What can I do? And it's making me reflect as a person and a teacher and a human being. And in the end, the whys are so important that I teach to my kids, making sure that they know what their goals are every single day, and it keeps me on track and it keeps me focused. And I want every kid to come in my classroom and say, I love being here. I want them to feel safe, and I want them to be able to take risks and know that not everyone is going to get if you don't get the right answer, I don't care. It's like this is a journey for us, and we're getting there somehow, and we're gonna do it together. And I wanna give them, like James always says, like repetition is the key to learning, and we wanna give the kids tools for the rest of their lives. Like we're teaching kindness and we're teaching respect, and we are also teaching them different strategies on ways to learn, taking notes, looking at rubrics first, and making goals for themselves. And I think the goals is a huge part of it too.
And if I can add on to the goals, and I'm seeing that's happening across grade levels, and not only just I set these goals, but coming back to say, what am I doing to meet those goals? And when I feel like, wow, I've met that goal, celebrating that and saying, okay, what got me there, and now I need to set my new goal. And so students are really becoming much more, I would say, intentional, thoughtful learners, which isn't that what we want for all of us in
and
our
I think
society?
And they're also learning the hows too. Like
Yes.
if you ask them, like when I'm doing like a running record, like okay, this is my tip for you. How do you think you can get there? And like them being able to have agency in that and giving them agency.
Yes.
Well, one of the things we say is we want each kid to be the best teacher they've ever had, because they're the only one going with them to the next grade. So if we can teach them how to be good learners, that's some good work. So we got a ways to go, but we're really happy with what we're doing, and we encourage you to talk to your CISAs. They all have a UDL coach. We were introduced to Diane several years ago, and we've been working with her ever since, and it's been a really good partnership. So I encourage you to tap into that resource for your district. So have a great rest of the year.
Thanks.